This week, Luther Burrell returned to Rugby Union after a brief stint in Rugby League, and just so excitingly, the one and only Gavin Henson is coming out of retirement to go back and play professional rugby league. So we got us thinking, what are the most exciting, the best cross-code players you can think of? Please send them in and we'll read out Jason Robinson's name lots of times next week. So it's been a pretty huge weekend of rugby. We had the final of Super Rugby Australia as the Brumbies took home the title despite quite a challenge from the Reds. I mean, it was a really good game of rugby and the Reds could have nicked it quite late on, but they turned down the shot at goal and then the Brumbies defence saw them out. They got out to quite a hefty early lead before Jordan Patai got the Reds right back in it, but Noel Olaseo was fantastic from 10, fantastic young player, and I'm really excited to see him play for the Wallabies going forward. Now on the other side of the world we had more finals rugby as we watched the European quarter-finals. Now the big result before we get onto the semi-finals later on was Saracens heading over to Dublin to play a Leinster team who were going 25 matches unbeaten. They just won the Pro 14 the previous week where they won every single game that season. And Saracens saw it through. It was a brilliant performance and they managed the game so well in a way Leinster didn't quite. Michael Rhodes was the official man of the match, but Alex Goode was fantastic, scoring most of the points, and Mauro Itoje, opposite James Ryan, who was the other best player on the pitch, the two of them, phenomenal, two phenomenal second row performances over either side as Saracens just saw them out. It was a brilliant, proper high intensity game of rugby. Elsewhere, Toulouse and Racing both kind of turned on the style to see them through to the semi-finals. Well, not going to say easily, but they did it without getting up into top gear. Exeter likewise saw off Northampton, while in the Challenge Cup, Bristol had to deal with her first half fight from the Dragons before eventually they just started giving the ball to Samuel Andrandra, and that was enough. That was it. That was. Turns out giving the ball to Samuel Andrandra is enough to win you rugby games by like 40 points. Turns out that'll do it. Good tactic. Bristol found out now, and it's going to be up to everyone else to try and stop them. Whilst over in France, Bordeaux beat Edinburgh and Toulon narrowly saw off the Scarlets, who had a chance to win it once again in the last minute, but couldn't quite put it together. Great turnover on the line of Sergio Parisse scoring the one try for Toulon. And then the other game in the Challenge Cup between Leicester and Cast was called off because of the Cast team testing positive. It which must not be named. Meaning Leicester, despite their kind of tumultuous season in which they would be bottom of the Premiership had it not been for Saracens' deduction, they're in a semi-final. And anything could happen. They could take home a title. They could win a title next week a few weeks later, but they play Toulon for the chance to make a final next week. Now that's something for them to play for. That's a reason for them to keep going. And so, as I say, those European semi-finals are next week. And here is my quick little guide to what we can look forward to in those matchups. After several months of lockdown and the summer of Super Rugby, it took the return of the European Cup to remind us how much fun, tense rugby is. For all the value in tri-fests, seeing Saracens smash and grab in Dublin via a gazillion penalty kicks from a gazillion metres away was so satisfying. This was controlled rugby played with purpose. It was a team with a game plan executing it. However, this weekend they play Racing, a team who are more likely described as mad. Whereas Saracens have worked hard to recruit a full squad of no-nonsense players who can see out any tough encounter, Racing's recruitment strategy seems to be just sign whoever has the most retweetable highlights reel and pull them all together using Teddy Oribaren or Maxi Machino at 9 and then one Mr. Finlay Russell at 10 to unlock that defence. Meanwhile, this year's Premiership favourites Exeter will face a team even madder. Every time Toulouse get the ball, it feels like an irresistible highlights gif in itself. The other week they scored a try through 11 offloads. Plus they've got Cheslin Colby. It's genuinely unfair, and we're in for a proper clash of styles down in Devon as a team who offload more than they pass face the 15 playing perhaps the tightest, most controlled rugby on the continent. Exeter's style is sensible and preordained. They know exactly what they're doing. This leads to two similar matchups between four very different teams and Europe's biggest prize at stake. It's been a long summer and a long lockdown, but I think it's been worth the wait. In other little bits, congratulations to Gareth Anscombe and his partner Mila on the birth of their first child, their first daughter, who, you know, they haven't chosen to do as Gareth's mum did and name after Welsh rugby legend in the 70s. I was hoping we might be looking at a younger Woodville Bennett Anscombe, but regardless, amazing news, congratulations to them. And a few just little highlights to pick out from the weekend. We had this incredible moment of skill from Felipe Dengunu, and we also had Lee Halfpenny pull off not just the tackle of the season, but the best tackle I've seen in several years. That's all the analysis you'll get on that tackle by Lee Halfpenny, because it just defies words, completely speechless. What a man, I forgot how in love with him I am. And last week, now somewhat ironically, we asked you, inspired by Leinster, who just lost their, who are the most dominant teams in rugby. So we had the WAU brought up Leicester it's a shame that, but for a while, it's easy to forget now, but Leicester Tigers were the most dominant team in world rugby. Guppers, the 2011-15 All Black squad, as he says, like possibly the greatest accumulation of players I've ever seen on the pitch. I think I agree with that. I think that is probably the best team of all time, certainly up to this point anyway. The Falbo mentions, how has no one mentioned SA, South Africa? I think that 2009 South Africa team that beat the Lions, then went on to win New Zealand back-to-back. That's as good a team as you'll ever see. That's as good a team as you'll ever face. Duan says, the Bulls in Super Rugby. DM says, has to be Canterbury 9 NPC titles in 10 years. You kind of can't beat that, 3 Rugby Shield runs as well. Matty says England in 2003. Their style of rugby annoyed everyone, but it worked. They won a World Cup. You can't say them winning World Cup and a Grand Slam in the same year. Ethan, Lithuania's 18-match unbroken winning streak. Agreed. Lucas, Toulouse between 1994 and 1997 won the French top division 4 years in a row. They also won the first European Cup in that time, beating Cardiff in the final. JTS Brown, however, Uruguay, enough said. I agree, Name me one competition Uruguay haven't dominated. Six Nations, dominate that every year. And so, that brings us through our collection of the most dominant teams in the rugby world. Please send us in the best players who've played both rugby league and union, and we'll read them out next week. And I may just talk about Gavin Henson, because I love and have missed Gavin Henson very dearly. And the worst thing about lockdown has been that I haven't been able to visit his pub he runs in South Wales yet. So anyway, we'll see you next week for more of the feed. In the meantime, have a wonderful week and enjoy yourselves thinking about Gavin Henson.